going on, guys? Today's first episode of Everything Outside. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a 350 Legend build in the AR platform. So what I got here, this is a Bear Creek Arsenal 350 Legend. It is side charge with a stainless steel heavy bull barrel, 20 inches. It has a 15-inch free float, and what I also have on here is going to be a Sight Mark 3x9 by 42 rifle scope here on it. I really do like the side charge handle. I built another AR that had a side charge handle. I was really interested in building another one that wasn't a pistol format. I wanted to build one in a rifle format that had a side charge handle. I'm gonna be pairing it today with a Anderson Manufacturing multi-cal strip blower, going along with a Pallmeto State Armory lower kit. So the reason I went with the Pallmeto State lower kit is this one in particular comes with a CMC drop-in trigger. This is a 3.5 pound pool flat blade trigger. I'm really interested to see how it goes, and that is my little one over there making some noise. But it is a 3.5 pound straight pull trigger. I was really interested to see how well that would do in a larger caliber rifle. It also comes with the Magpul stock, along with a Magpul hand grip. Just some nice little upgrades. Want to put a little finishing touches on your build there. So, of course, it comes with all the other pieces that also come in there. They package everything up really nice. Pallmeto State Armory does a really good job. I really like their products. I've been buying from them for a couple of years now, and I really like how they package and do everything. It makes it really easy to get their stuff in and start getting your work together and get some stuff together. So let's get started. I'm gonna lay everything out and then we'll go from there. All right, so now that we got everything all laid out, obviously we got our completed upper here, buttstock, hand grip. We got our drop-in trigger. We got all of our parts and pieces here. We're all gonna have it all set out. I'm not endorsed by Pallmeto or anything like that. I just really like their products, and they come with a nice little cool sticker that you can stick on your gun cabinet. It's really nice. You have your gun cabinet have stickers from all your different firearm brands and parts brands and things like that. It's just kind of cool thing, a little thing that I like. So we'll get to work and get the stuff separated, and we'll get going and see how it looks. So before you get started on any build, really, there's a few tools that you are going to need in particular to kind of get the job done. This is a set of roll pin punches here. This is a knock-through vise here, and just a basic an AR tool, an AR combo tool. Now, all of this stuff you can buy it in different places. I think I bought this at Academy, and I bought these two on Amazon. These are really the only specialty tools that you will need to kind of get the job done. Everything else is some stuff that you can just use from home. Like a pair of pliers, screwdrivers, maybe a soft hammer or a rubber mallet. Those are going to be the only other additional items that you'll need to kind of get the job done. Go from there. The AR tool, you'll definitely need one of these. They're good for just about everything. I'll go into another episode where I'll show I did a complete build on a 308 AR, and it was I redid barrel, I redid upper, I redid the barrel and the upper. I did all of that stuff using this tool here and a couple of other specialty tools that I had to buy. The good thing about the specialty tools is you buy them once and then you get to keep them. Any other thing that you need to do, you'll have it with you for whenever you need. Right. The very first thing that I typically start with is going to be the trigger guard. This one's the Magpul composite trigger guard. You just want to make sure that when you do it, you line it up right. It'll have a short end and a long end. The short end is going to have a spot on one side where it screws in, the other side it don't. You find that side, and that side goes toward the trigger well. Your longer end will go back here toward the rear here. So it'll just slide into place like such, and then there will be a small screw here. It'll drop in there. We'll screw it in here. I just got a cheap set of Harbor Freight Allen keys for this, and then this is the pin that'll have to be hammered in, and that's what you be using the vise for. All right, let's get it going. All right, so we already have our first screw in here. I don't know if you can see it's screwed in, just kind of screwed into place there. And then here is going to be where our roll pin is going to go. So here's the roll pin here. So what I'm going to do is come over here to one of my roll pin punches, find the pin that lines up with its size. Looks like the 1/8 is going to be about the right one there. And then what you do is you push it into place, you line it up. And I use the block here as a nice little set area. Kind of hard to do this with one hand. Find you a good spot where it'll line up. It'll push into place, and then we drop our pin in the hole there, and then we bang it in. I'll come back to that once I'm done. All right, so we got the screw in, and we got the roll pin hit in. Sometimes you will get a little bit of like marks around the edge. It's all fine. You can buy some stuff called aluminum black. It's just a metal finish. You wipe it around your areas where you might have any marks or scars or marks on your upper, and it will blend it all in. It'll look just fine. Next piece we're gonna move on to is we're actually gonna start with the trigger. So we'll go from there. All right, so moving on to the trigger. So when you look at it, your trigger will look like this. You'll have two holes in it, a high hole and a low hole. Your high hole, if you look at your upper, you also have a high hole and a low hole. So all you'll do, find you a spot in there, and it fits directly off in that gap, just as if you were going to do all of the rest of the assembly like normal. You just slide it right down off in there until you get your holes lined up so that you can see through them. Once you have your holes lined up where you can see through them, your trigger's in. We'll knock in the pins and keep on moving. So the pins that will go into the trigger here require your punch pin here to be a 5 32 inch, and they will line up. Once these are actually pushed in, the CMC fire control group has anti-roll pins, so that your trigger, the pins can't spin or roll, and they also can't come out. So we'll get all of that installed here in just a second. All right, so now I already got one put in. I just banged this pin in here till it's nice and flush. What you shouldn't be able to do is actually feel it. You shouldn't be able to feel it sticking up on either side. It should be smooth over the hole. So once you feel over both sides to make sure that you have it about even, then you put in their anti-rotation pins like such. Oh, if I can get it to thread up, there we go. Whew, there we go. And then they actually come with some tiny little star keys here that operate just like that. Screw them up, fill them up tight, and then we'll just flip it over, go to the other side, and do the same thing here, and then the trigger itself will be complete. All right, so now that we got both of our pins in here, our trigger is installed. So now I have basically this bottom area here is complete. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these CMC triggers, but the 3.5 pound pull is very crisp and very light. So your average mil-spec AR has somewhere between 5.5 to 8 pounds of draw, depending on, you know, your room for error and play like that. So what you end up with generally is you end up a little bit of slack draw before you get to the actual trigger wall, and then you pull the trigger, bam, you get your fire. Well, on these there is no slack draw. There is zero slack draw, none whatsoever. The CMC triggers, when you put your finger here on the trigger, you are at the wall. So then what you will do is you will apply 3.5 pounds of pressure, bam, and you get fire. But they are very crisp, they're straight draw, they're very clean. They help you with accuracy and with follow-up shots as well. All right, so the next piece we're going to do here is the fire select switch. So there's your fire selector. We have one spring and one pin. All of this, if you look on the side here, you've got a little hole right here beside. This is where your grip will screw in. There's a little hole here. Your selector and your spring will go in here, and then your hand grip will actually go on top. Your hand grip will actually go on top here and hold that all together. Where the pin, there's a little bitty hole. I don't know if we could even see it with the light here, but yeah, you can see the little hole there. That little golden pin will stick up through there. It's a detent pin that will keep your selector in place, whether you have it in safe or you switch down and have it on fire. So that's what kind of gives it that tactile feedback, where you know which one you're in, where you can go from safe to fire, safe to fire. All right, so we'll take a look here. I just went ahead and dropped in the fire select switch. It doesn't really matter whether you put it on safe or on fire. Either way is fine because of the way it's designed on the bottom. There's a gap for it. We'll rotate over here to this side. So you can see here, whoops, sorry. You can see here, and I'm trying to get it to focus. There we go. So the detent pin is in there. What you'll actually do is you can use one of your punches, or you can use the spring itself, and you'll push it in and get it to seat. So what I mean by being it seated is how it's off in there enough that this has a little bit of feedback where I can feel that there's something in there. So then what we'll do from there is we'll go to our hand grip here. There's a little hole here on the top. We drop our pin, we'll drop our spring inside of there, and then they mate up. So our spring is in there, it'll go on top of our detent pin. We'll push this up to the hand guard, and then we will run a screw underneath here on the back side that goes in here, holds the hand grip and that detent pin together, and it's all in one motion. But you cannot put your hand grip on until you get this pin in, and then you're good to go. So the best way I found to do this is to do everything vertical, so you don't lose your spring and your detent pin can still stay in there. I don't know if you can see it, but you do everything vertical. Push it, get it to line up there, and it should slide right into play. We'll double check and make sure that everything lined up there. Come on, get in there. And if you have a little trouble like me, I'm having issues with my spring lining up, this is what you keep your roll pins for. I'm gonna get a thinner roll pin to fit my gap here, line my spring up so that my spring snaps right into place in on top of that detent pin. And then sometimes you might just have to bang it just a tad and get it in there and seat it properly. And then we'll tighten the screw in, and that should be it. So when it comes to the mag pull to this screw, it's an Allen over flathead, but this is a large blade flathead. You have to have the large blade. As you can see, it's really wide. You have to have a large blade flathead, otherwise you might end up stripping your screw because it's such a big Allen head opening. So this is one of those things. Make sure that you do have what you need to complete the job. You're going to need a very wide head flathead screwdriver. So now that we've got our screw screwed in there, Magpul stuff comes with the little caps. Drop it in on top, and then before you move on, the last thing you always want to make sure that you do is check your work at every stage, so that way if you're having an issue you don't have to take a ton of stuff apart. So as you can see, my hammer's pulled back and it should be nice and crisp, make a nice clicking sound. You know that you are in business. So if it is on safe or on fire, sorry, then if it's on safe, cannot pull your trigger, go to fire, bam, we got action. And whenever your firearm is fired, it cannot move your selector switch. So that's how you know you're doing good. So the next thing we're gonna do is we'll go ahead and do our mag release. It's a fairly easy install. It's one piece here on the back side, and then it is the button that goes in on this side. Super easy, super quick to put in. We'll move in on that. All right, so the mag release is fairly simple. It's three pieces. You're gonna have the mag catch, the spring, and the button. So for installation on this, you'll start on this side, and then you will just, you can see like there's a hole where it goes through. Your mag catch will just drop right off in that hole, go straight across. Get it to line up and push it all the way in until it's flush. Then on this side here, where your push button goes, you'll first start by installing your spring, and then your button, textured side, let's see if we can see it. The textured side goes out. We'll just push it right there on top of that spring, and then you give it a couple of twists to tighten it down. And then how you finish tightening it is you will push this button as far as it goes, and then on the back side you'll spin this around, and we'll see, we might be able to get one more good spin out of it. And it's good and tight. Now you got your push button operating perfectly. And you just want to make sure that it sits, push button's not out, sits flush on this side, should operate. And you always want to check your work. We'll in that's a 308 mag, that won't fit. Your mag should sit in there flush, not pull out, but you should be able to push the button, magazine falls, you're good to go. I also recommend, I don't lubricate or do anything until I'm complete with my build, and then I lubricate everything all at once. I believe I might need to put one more screw turn on there, and yeah, I got room for one more screw turn on there. And that's why you always want to check your work. But that's going to operate smoothly and flawlessly, just like I like it. Perfect. So our next piece for install is going to be the bolt catch, which goes here. And like I say, one thing I love about Pallmeto State is they have everything separated, all your parts and pieces together. So it's three pieces. It's one pin, one spring, and then the bolt catch itself. And we will be knocking it in here, getting it going, and we should be good to go. All right, so now that we get to this portion of it, I go ahead and I drop the spring in, and then your detent here sits on top of the spring inside of it, and that's what gives it its rebound. And then your mag catch here will sit like such, and you'll line it up, push it in. There we go. And then all we need to do is once we get it there, we'll line it up. We'll get our pin and knock it in. And you gotta have two hands to do this one. And then it should operate as it should. So this pin is gonna be the 3/32 roll pin punch. I prefer to use the backside rather than the front. I just think it's a little bit easier, especially with the with this portion here. I think it's a little bit easier to come into it from the backside. I will bang it in about, you know, halfway into here, then put my pin in and then bang it in the rest. Alrighty, of all of your roll pins and stuff to do, this one's probably one of the more difficult ones to do, but it's banged in, actuating as it should, and we will, like always, stick a mag in, check, and it is up and raised. It's catching. We're good to go. All right, now we're going to get into takedown pins. Now, takedown pins, if you look, there's only 2 takedown pins, but there's 3 springs and 3 detent pins. The reason they do that is because more than likely you're going to lose one of them trying to put in the front post. The front post is difficult to put in. You push the pin in, then that little hole that they put there, you use that little hole to stick either something very small like a nail or one of your tiny Allen keys to hold your spring into place while you slide your detent pin in, and then you release the tension from the spring on the detent pin and onto the takedown pin. Now, your 2 pins. You got a long pin and a short pin. Your long pin is for your front post. Your short pin is for your back post. So I recommend that you go ahead and you can start either way. I recommend starting on the front pin. There's less involved in it. With the back pin, however, your back pin requires that you put in your buffer tube and buffer spring and all the other good stuff that goes back here. So that's why we'll start out with the front pin. We'll drop our spring in, we'll put in our detent pin, we'll see if we can't hold some tension and get that pin in there. All right, so if you look on your takedown pin, it's railed on one side. That side's gonna go on the same side where your hole is, so it'll be on all same side. This is how it goes. You put your spring in, your detent pin, you push it down. Then what you have to do is you have to push this and get this past that, and it'll lock it into place. Everything will push and squeeze up tight. You'll be good to go. So this definitely requires 2 hands, and I recommend that if you're doing this, you do not do this in a room with carpet, because if you lose that pin or that spring, you will never get it back out of carpet. But I know from experience. All right, so we got our ring and our detent pin in, and it is good to go. As you can see, it is seated, and we will push it, and it's locked into place. Good to go. Now we will move on to installing the rear takedown pin along with the buffer tube. These 2 go together. So if you look here on the back, there's a little tiny hole. That's where your spring and your detent pin go. You stick the detent pin in first, spring afterwards. You'll already have your takedown pin in, and then you will go up behind it with your buffer spring to secure everything up. So we go here, and our rail is going to go facing back. Our railing there is going to be facing backwards. We will drop it in and secure it. we'll start working on the back end. So generally I save this last portion of the upper for last because it's kind of like a multiple piece going together. So you got your buffer tube here. We're going to be putting in our takedown spring and detent pin here, along with the buffer tube retention pin that goes in right here. So you kind of have to do all three of these sort of all at once to kind of get it to go. All right, guys, so all we do right here is you're just going to screw your buffer tube in and to a point to where the tube here will actually cover the pin and keep it pushed down. That'll make it so that it's easy to just drop in your buffer and your spring like such. Then we'll get this, you push it down, and then you just unspin your buffer just enough to let the pin out, and bam, it's in there and good to go. All right, guys, now that we've gotten to this point where the buffer's in, I got this rotated 90 degrees so that we can access the hole here for the detent pin and the spring. First thing we're going to do is drop in our takedown pin, push it in fully. So now that we got our takedown pin in, hold a little pressure on that so it won't spin, and we're going to drop in our detent pin there and the spring to follow. Then we will take our buffer and spin it back. Now all you got to do is get that spring there under that guard. Make sure all of that's lining up good. And I should have a little get that all lined up and straight. And we're going to push it down. And then tighten our ring down. So we'll hit this with the vise here in just a second, but what you want to do is check and make sure that your takedown pin is lined up properly. And it should be snug, shouldn't spin or move. Should be nice and crisp when you push it into a good lock position. So since that is in place in a good spot, this is where we will use the AR tool here, and we will tighten down our pin. All right, nice and snug. That's not going to go anywhere. And we now have a completed lower. All that's we're left to do now is drop our upper on here and make sure everything's working correctly. All right, so we got everything done and completed now. Everything's working as it should. We sound good. We're in action. Last thing that we'll check is to make sure that our mags are activating properly. Should lock out. Mag drops. No action when the bolt's back. Mag release. And we'll switch it to safe. We get nothing. Switch it to fire. Bam. That is completed. So we are in business. Last thing I'll do before we take her out for a test drive, I guess you could say, is I'm gonna open up and kind of spray everything down with some rim oil. Just get everything nice and wet. We'll run some rounds through it, and she's in action, good to go.